Hey, everyone. Woo, my hair looks weird. Anyway, didn't look at myself in the mirror. Anyway, hey, everyone. Welcome back to the most interactive show, wrestling show, that is, on the interweb. Welcome back to Wrestling with Omer. We have a litany of topics to talk about today. Again, it depends on what you all want to talk about. We are going to be taking questions. We're going to be talking about all the big news in the wrestling universe, in the wrestling fandom, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, Trevor is not here right now. He is on assignment, as they would say, which is WWE speak for he's on vacation. He's having fun. Let him enjoy his time away. So I'll be taking questions for the next little bit. We'll probably do about an hour, maybe a little less, depending on how much you guys want to talk about. We'll do that, but I see MGT's in the chat. I see Cincy's in the chat. Guys, be sure to drop a like. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and put your questions in the chat. Let's get things going. Just to start things off, let's talk about some of the biggest news right now that's happening in pro wrestling. There's right now, I think, two big stories that everyone's wondering. One, I think it's all encompassing the entire build to All Out. What is that going to look like? What is it going to be? I know that's something that's very big on my mind, especially considering the fact that I'm going to be going to Schaumburg, not Chicago, Schaumburg, in early September. So that's definitely big on my mind. The other big news, obviously, being Sasha Banks and Naomi seeming to be a lock to come back to WWE. So we'll talk a little bit about that later in the show. Now, we're going to kick off by talking about All Out indirectly, and we're going to talk about CM Punk, the reigning, defending, undisputed, well, maybe not that last part, AEW World Champion. CM Punk won the AEW World title back at Double or Nothing from Hangman Adam Page, and then less than a week after, he was forced to vacate that title, or not vacate that title. He was forced to go away from injury, and they were forced to bring in an interim champion. Punk is still the quote-unquote AEW, the real AEW World Champion, but the person who's defending it in his name right now is Jon Moxley. A lot of people were wondering, how long is Punk going to be out? When the injury happened, it was said to be a few months, but it has been pretty vague on that front on how long he's going to be out. We had a little bit of an update from Punk himself. Now, Punk made an appearance at Chicago C2E2 conference, and there was some chatter that he could be involved. This is, again, from the PWT cast that noted that CM Punk did ice his foot during C2E2, but the second City Savior is hopeful for being at All Out on September 4th in not Chicago, in Chicago-ish area. Punk has an upcoming doctor's appointment, which will likely reveal his status. Now, here's the thing. And there have been a few people who have noted this. There have been a few people who have said this. I think Punk being at All Out is a no-brainer. CM Punk should be at All Out. If there are currently no plans to have CM Punk on All Out, that is a big mistake by AEW. Does that mean he needs to be wrestling? No. If CM Punk is not ready to wrestle, he should not be wrestling. But CM Punk doesn't need his foot. He doesn't need a healthy leg in order to cut a promo. CM Punk doesn't need a healthy foot in order to come out and tell Jon Moxley, just show Jon Moxley his world title and set up that feud set up that match for whenever it's going to be. Just so Jon Moxley knows. Just so Moxley knows. In the back of his mind, he's always going to have to think about CM Punk, because that's the battle that he's eventually going to need to have. So, yes, I do think that CM Punk is going to be at All Out. I think he should be at All Out. If he is not at All Out, again, in close enough, quote-unquote, to Chicago, for that to be a bit of a hometown kind of feel for him, if he is not at All Out, that is a huge, monumental mistake by Tony Khan and AEW. Point blank. MGT in the chat says, in a way, Jon Moxley is just holding that warm for CM Punk. He is. But here's the thing. There's a lot of discourse right now. There's a lot of discourse going on about who is the better AEW World Champion, or who would be a better AEW World Champion. And I think there are a lot of people, myself included, honestly, to be frank with you, who think that Jon Moxley's title reign now was kind of a blessing in disguise, or CM Punk's injury, you could say, is a blessing in disguise because it led to Jon Moxley's title reign. Because this is the Jon Moxley title reign that we were kind of, for lack of a better term, just quarantined from. I probably shouldn't say that, but whatever. This is, I mean, literally Jon Moxley wins the title, and then 2 weeks later, the entire world shuts down. Wrestling fans weren't allowed back into stands at capacity until over a year after that, and that was well after his title reign was over. So for me, this is kind of it brings back the feeling of those early days of AEW when Moxley first won that title, and said he was going to be a fighting champion, which he was at Daly's Place, and he was during the pandemic. But this is the full entree, you could say. If this was a meal, this would be the full entree of his title reign. We're seeing him defend the title against the likes of Brody King, against the likes of Takeshita, against the likes of this week coming up, Chris Jericho. Like, this is a big deal because we have a fighting champion who is over as all hell, and who people actually want to see wrestle week in, week out. Not saying they don't want that for Punk, but this Jon Moxley title reign, I'm telling you, it is a blessing in disguise, and it's going to make that eventual match between himself and Punk even bigger whenever it ends up happening. Now, on the flip side of this, with this news of CM Punk saying that he's very optimistic, he's hopeful that he can make it to All Out in some capacity, I think, again, no-brainer, he should be at All Out cutting a promo or just staring down Jon Moxley. Like, if I were to book this, right? If I were to book All Out, the end of All Out, I don't know who the opponent would be. It's probably going to end up being someone, maybe Malachi Black. Maybe. I don't know. I actually, that's the one thing. I don't know who that big primetime heel is right now in AEW that's going to be the big matchup for Jon Moxley. I think Malachi Black over the next few weeks could become that guy. But we know it's not going to be Chris Jericho. We know it's not going to be... Could it be Eddie? No, Eddie Kingston's fighting Sammy Guevara at the pay-per-view. So, yeah, I mean, MJF? I don't know. Now I'm just spitballing. But no, whoever that ends up being, whoever Moxley ends up fighting it All Out, he beats him. 1, 2, 3, clean in the middle of the ring. Jon Moxley, bloody, battered, and bruised, retains his AEW World title. Holds it high in the middle of the ring, proclaiming himself to be the one undisputed champion. And then Cult of Personality hits. And CM Punk, much like he did over 10 years ago with John Cena, he comes back, holding his title in his hands, mocking Moxley, claiming himself to be the undisputed champion, and you build towards an undisputed title match. If Punk is healthy if Punk is healthy shortly afterwards, maybe you can do it at Grand Slam. I doubt that's going to be the case. I think you're going to probably end up having to do it at AEW Full Gear, which is fine. Full Gear is a great pay-per-view. But eventually that match is going to happen. And I think that it would make a statement for having Punk at All Out, would make a statement that AEW knows exactly what the audience wants, and it would build up that match. Even if Punk goes away, right? Even if you put Punk out there for All Out and he goes away for another month, another 2 months, whatever, he's still not healthy, right? Just that being in the back of Jon Moxley's mind is great storytelling, in my opinion. Surf Wrestling in the chat says, IDK, if you listen to Edge Raw Talk on YouTube, but in the middle he was making a promo and he said, I'm a poetry wrestle you, priest. Could that be a Bray Wyatt Easter egg? Yes, Bray Wyatt did. I saw that Bray Wyatt tweet that he had out there that was going like something like poetry is something, and then Elite was in there. It's possible. It's also possible that Edge is working all of us. That's the thing about wrestling. Like, especially like the older wrestlers, they know how to work us. They know how to get us going. They know how to get us talking, how to get us excited. And it's by dropping these Easter eggs that may come to fruition, may not. Bray Wyatt's literally been doing this for over a year now. He got released last June. He's been dropping the Easter eggs. We've been thinking, oh, he's going to AEW. He's going to Impact. He's going back to WWE. No one knows where he's going except for Bray Wyatt and whoever wants to sign him. So, as far as how much I buy into that, I'd say a little bit, but I think it's conventional wisdom would tell me Edge is just messing with us. He's trolling us, whatever. Like you just said, Surf Wrestling. He's probably trolling us. But that's part of the fun of pro wrestling is trolling and getting trolled, right? Building up that excitement to sometimes get excited and have this big moment or break you down. That's what heels are supposed to do. That's what faces. That's what pro wrestling is. Entertain you, hook you, engage you, entertain you, and sometimes stab you in the back. Not as often as Vince McMahon used to do with his storylines, but regardless, that's kind of what pro wrestling's about. MGT says, Omer, you should go read that Bray Wyatt tweet. Oh, okay, I'll read it again. I saw it and I read it, just not deeply enough to remember exactly what the hell he was talking about. But let's see. Go Wyatt6, Wyndham6 at Twitter. Wrestling is a love story. Wrestling is not a love story. It's a fairy tale for masochists, a comedy for people who criticize punchlines, a fantasy most cannot understand, a spectacle no one can deny. Lines are blurred, heroes are villains, budgets are cut, business is business, but it can also be a land where dead men walk, where honor makes you elite. Heyo. Where demons run for office and a rock bottom is the reason to rejoice. Woo! It's an escape, a reason to blame at anyone but yourself. A reason to point blame. There we go. A reason to point blame at anyone but yourself for 2 to 3 hours. An excuse to be a kid again, and nothing matters except the moment we are in. Wrestling is not a love story. It's much more. It's hope. And in a world surrounded by hate and greed and violence, a world where closure may never come, we all know a place that has hot and cold hope on top. For better or for worse. Well, he is a poet, isn't he? He is a poet. Surf Wrestling says, Gail Kim recently told media that she wants Paige Saraya. She wants Saraya Knight. Hey, Gail Kim versus Paige. Give me that. That is a great matchup. One Hall of Famer in Gail Kim against another future Hall of Famer in Paige. Give me that. Surf Wrestling says, did Bray Wyatt just tweet? No, so that tweet was from, I think, like 2 days ago or something. Surf Wrestling says, even Eric Redbeard was trending today. He said patience as well. See? Trolling. MGT says, he made a reference to The Undertaker, Kane, The Rock, and how TK bought Ring of Honor. Yep. He did all of that. And look, I think it's undeniable. Like on some Cody Rhodes stuff. It is ungoddamn deniable that Bray Wyatt knows his way with words, and he knows how to engage an audience. That is what he's doing, and that's kind of what we were talking about just now. It's that idea of working you, trolling you, but engaging you. That's one of the most crucial parts of not just pro wrestling, but any form of entertainment. Engaging the audience, hooking you, getting you invested. And that is the perfect encapsulation of that. Like, and that's not even a wrestling thing. That is just words on paper. Sure, it's about pro wrestling, but that is like poetry. Like, hey man, I'm telling you, who knows? Edge might be onto something. There already might be a deal done. Who knows? Surf Wrestling says there is no doubt that Bray's been watching both shows. Oh, I promise you, Bray's been keeping up with both shows. He knows. Bray Wyatt's someone who I believe is smart enough to know that keeping up with the product is going to not only be better for himself, but also whatever company he ends up working for, the people he ends up working with. Like he's very smart about that. He is legitimately one of the most one of the most intelligent people in pro wrestling from just an aptitude for this form of entertainment, for this form of sport, whatever you want. Sports entertainment. There you go. He has an aptitude for this that is second to almost none. Like, this guy gets it. He truly gets it. Surf Wrestling in the chat says Bray wants competition, someone to buy him. He should. I mean, look. Here's the thing. There very well could be a bidding war for Bray Wyatt that we're not privy to, and if there is, he honestly deserves it because he is the biggest free agent out there right now. Like, when you think about all the people who have signed or all the people who would be, like, the only one that comes close would be someone like Johnny Gargano. Like, Johnny Gargano would be a close second. But if we're talking about free agents right now, outside, like Bray Wyatt's the guy. So if I'm AEW, if I'm WWE, like, that's the guy you have your eye on. If he calls, you're picking up for damn sure, especially if you're WWE. With all of the hype you have, with the current regime, with the lack of trust that Bray Wyatt and Vince McMahon had between each other, apparently, there's not a better time for Bray Wyatt to come back into WWE. Especially if you look at Raw the past few weeks. I won't talk about SmackDown, but if you look at Raw the past few weeks, for the most part, it has been a show that makes sense, which is a vast improvement given what we've been watching over the past number of years. MGT says, Omar, do you know that a fan tweeted that Miro had it better in WWE and Miro liked to post? I mean, workers got to work, right? Workers got to work. Yeah. Here's the thing. I think one thing that gets lost between all of this, right? When we're talking about like these like things like, you know, okay, Miro liked the tweet that maybe was a little bit of a shot at AEW or maybe a little bit complimentary of WWE. Like, when we see these things, one thing we have to remember is these people work at these places, right? And granted, they're public figures, right? Granted that they're making more money than most people do. Granted that they're entertainers and all that. Still, when you work somewhere, generally, when you have a job, there's going to be days, there's going to be months maybe where you're feeling like, man, I don't want to show up. I don't want to work. You're not going to always be happy with your job is what I'm trying to say, right? And that's one thing I think we need to remember. At the end of the day, this is also a job. A lot of people love where they are in pro wrestling, and that's a great thing. But at the end of the day, this is a job. And everyone, to some extent, gets frustrated or likes to poke fun at the bad parts of their job, right? We've all done it. Like, we can't say, like, there are days where I don't want to get up and make a video for YouTube, for example, right? Not my full-time job, but still. There are days where I just don't want to do I don't want to do it. And you have to grind yourself to do it. And you know, like, that's an example. Or when I used to work in my last job, it wasn't the happiest of campers every day. But you still do it. You still go out there and you do your best. It happens. So is this a sign that Miro might be frustrated? Yes. Odds are that most people are frustrated with some aspect of their job. No matter how happy they are, that doesn't mean that they automatically want out. That doesn't mean they want the release. That doesn't mean anything, right? But what it does mean is that things could be better. Things could always be better. I promise you this. Outside of maybe Bryan Danielson, right? Outside of maybe even Bryan Danielson's actually said like there were some things about AEW, or sorry, something about WWE that he prefers over AEW, right? But like, I'm sure there's people like CM Punk has been given everything, right? And I say like this, and I mean this in a very complimentary way, like, as in, like, yes, he has performed in the past, and his name is big enough that, yeah, sure, he has, I guess, earned the money that he makes, right? But CM Punk is a guy who is, like, literally everything has been very catered to him. He even said that if he had to come back to wrestling, he had to be a little, you know, like, someone had to, or the promoter or whoever would have to, you know, kind of sweet talk him a little bit, right? And they've done things CM Punk's way. And it's worked out. But outside of maybe him, or maybe even him, there's got to be something he's frustrated with. Everyone's frustrated to an extent. Come on. You tell me Miro, right? The guy who was TNT champion, who was God's favorite champion, had one of the best runs with the TNT title we had seen. You tell me he's not frustrated that he's not battling for a championship right now, that he's stuck in this weird feud with Malachi Black, that he hasn't been on TV for months, that he's been injured. Come on. You're telling me someone like Andrade El Idolo is not frustrated? Of course he is. If anyone on the AEW roster has a gripe or in my opinion, there are two people outside. Okay, here's the thing. Outside of the women's division, right? There are two people, in my opinion, who have been completely almost. It's like actually insulting to the level that they've been under pushed or what have you, right? Or their usage, I should say, in AEW. It has been Andrade El Idolo and, in my opinion, Sonny Kiss. I think AEW has missed the ball with Sonny Kiss. Sonny Kiss was going out there having great matches. Has been going out there having great matches on AEW Dark and Dark Elevation. But the last time you really saw Sonny Kiss on TV was that match with Cody Rhodes for the TNT title. After that, you haven't seen Sonny Kiss at all on TV. So, yes, at the end of the day, and I could say the same thing for some people in WWE. You still don't think there are people in WWE that are frustrated. You still don't think there are people in WWE. They might be more optimistic, but you don't think they're frustrated. Come on. Guys, everyone at the end of the day is frustrated to some extent with their job. It's normal. It means to an extent that you see yourself in a high light and you respect yourself, right? Because why would I have to put up with some BS, right? But y'all let me know what you guys think in the chat. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Surf Wrestling in the chat says, all I know is Miro should have won the All-Atlantic Championship, but Pac should have never won it. And here's the thing. If Miro didn't win it, Pac definitely should have won it. Actually, no, I would say this. I think Pac should have won it. Like, he was my number one pick to win it. Like, it was him and Miro, obviously, but Pac should have won that title. That is someone who, if you look at his win record in AEW, I actually think it's like something insane. I'll look it up right now, but if you look at what Pac has done and the way he's been presented on TV at AEW over the past 3 years, like he should be battling for the world title all the time, but he rarely ever is. The last time he had a crack at it was back at Double or Nothing 2021 in that great, amazing match that himself, Kenny Omega, and Orange Cassidy had. Outside of that, the dude hasn't really been in the title picture, and it's kind of sad because he's been protected to the level of being a top talent, but he's never been like showcased in that top talent. He's been like upper mid card, you know, like it's kind of, it is kind of crazy to me, like the level of how he's been underrated, because he really has been underrated. And look, they only have like 2 hours of real TV a week, so I get it. And he's been on Rampage, with a show where, you know, gets fine viewership, but not great, especially when you compare it to Dynamite. But Pac right now, his career in AEW, 37-18. 37-18-2, I should say. So that's 2 ties. That's a great record for someone who's rarely ever battling for a title. Surf Wrestling says, did you hear the news that Tony Khan is worse backstage than Vince McMahon? I mean, again, so I haven't heard this news specifically about Tony Khan being worse backstage than Vince McMahon, and I'm not sure what that's about. But I have a hunch that Tony Khan, I mean, look, all you have to do is look at some of the controversies that Tony Khan has had over the past number of months, going back to New Year's Day. I still think it's weird how that tweet on New Year's Day, right? It was almost a turning point in AEW's history, like in a weird way, because AEW, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of a lot of hardcore wrestling fans, is objectively a better show or a more fun to watch show than Raw or SmackDown. Again, subjective, but I think in the opinion of a lot of people, it's a better show. withstanding, AEW, when that tweet went out, when that big swole tweet went out from Tony Khan, lost a lot of goodwill. That's when the honeymoon period, I talked about this, like the honeymoon period with AEW ended a long time ago. Because there was like a year and a half where it was just rainbows. AEW, everyone wanted AEW to be successful because it was this new insurgent company, because it was getting a TV deal, because it was showcasing big time stars, introducing new stars and revitalizing older stars that we knew. So, yeah, I mean, now I think like Tony Khan, he gets a bad rap because he's the guy in charge. Here's the thing, right? This is not me trying to defend Tony Khan. There are a lot of things that Tony Khan has done, both as a promoter and as an executive, that I don't necessarily agree with, right? But whenever you're the boss, like the criticism's always going to come your way, and that is again not a defense of Tony Khan. That is rightfully so. When you own something, when you're the boss, when you have final say over stuff, at the end of the day, you gave final say over it. That's on you. Because you're the one wielding the power. You're the one who's going to get the criticism back as well. And MGT just dropped a chat that says, a former AEW talent said that TK is the king of last-minute decisions or something like that. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, look, here's the thing about AEW, right? A lot of the decisions, like the promos especially, where they go, the talent dictates them. So I wouldn't be surprised if here's the thing, right? I don't think we've heard about last-minute changes to things on Dynamite. Here's the thing. There's a difference between last-minute changes and last-minute decisions in wrestling. What Vince McMahon did were last-minute changes. The script was already written. The talent knew about it. The talent was ready for it. And the script just kept getting changed throughout the day. Like, they kept hearing different things until a few minutes before they went out there, and boom. With AEW, from what I know and what I've been following over the last number of years, it's been more of a thing of, okay, it's TV. I have some ideas. What are we thinking? And okay, you're about to go out. Okay, here's what we do. Yeah, sure. And I can understand why that's frustrating 100%. I'd be frustrated too. But yeah, I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's wrestling. And I think the criticism... I have a few criticisms of Tony Khan as a promoter in general, that, yeah, I would agree with that. Surf Frosting says, Dustin told talent, if you're feeling unhappy in AEW, get out of here. Oh, Dustin. That's the old school mentality of wrestling, right? If you don't like it, you can get out. You ever seen that episode of South Park, guys? Well, if you don't like America, you can get out. Yeah, it's not that great. Yeah, if that's what Dustin Rhodes said, then I mean, shouldn't say that. You should try to engage. Here's my thing, Ray. The one of the big reasons that people liked AEW in the beginning, because it felt like a collaboration. It genuinely felt like in the beginning it was a collaboration. And it might not have been true. It never may have been true. But it felt like that. That feeling of collaboration, that the talent have more control and you know, they have a say and they can talk openly. If that starts to go away, which I think it has a little bit at least, it's not good for the way people view your company, because even a year ago, I think about a year ago this time, AEW was the place to be. Forget going to WWE. AEW was the place to be. They were bringing in talent left and right. Talent wanted to be in AEW. Malachi Black, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk. A year ago today, AEW was churning out some of their best episodes, some of their best matches, some of their best moments. Some of the best moments in wrestling. And now, I mean, it was never going to live up to that. Because you're never going to live up to 1.4 million viewers on a Friday night at 10 p.m. to tune in to watch CM Punk return to wrestling. You're never going to live up to that a year later. Unless you get, like, John Cena. That'd be the only thing you could do. At the end of the day, AEW was bound to have some weird weird mojo. It was bound to have some inconsistencies, some uncertainties backstage. It was always bound to happen. And we're feeling it now. Talent are frustrated, and probably deservedly so. Because you're never gonna. That's the thing. When we talk about what's best for wrestling is for there to be more more large companies, or more companies in general, I should say, more companies that are able to platform these wrestlers and allow them to be showcased to whatever their audience may be. For GCW, it's more of the extreme crowd. For AEW, it's more of the hardcore wrestling crowd, and the older and like the 18 to 34 demographic. For WWE, it's a lot of younger and older fans, and that's fine. Play your music the way you want to. But there needs to be more parity, because when there's more parity, more of these stars can be happier, make more money, and hopefully have their vision exposed to the world. So Wrestling in the chat says, you know what, you make a fair point. Miro got messed up when they took him off TV. Yep, he did. Yeah, I mean, he was also injured. Like, that's the other thing. He was injured. He was recovering, so you can't blame him for being off TV. By the way, guys, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. So Wrestling in the chat says, what did you think about Forbidden Doors? Should there have been more of a build? I mean, absolutely. But I want to get to MTT's chat. I'll answer that in a second, Surf. But I want to get to MTT's chat first. The Wednesday Night Wars was the Wednesday Night Wars was a joke, man. The IWC made it seem like a bigger deal than it actually was. You know what's weird? I kind of agree with you. I really kind of agree with you. I mean, part of it, here's the thing. It was, but it wasn't, if that makes sense. Because it wasn't the Monday Night War. I do want to be clear about that. Because people want to say that, oh my God, the Wednesday Night War, it's just like the Monday Night War, head-to-head competition, the best show against the best show, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't that. We don't need to kid ourselves. It was not that. It wasn't at that level. Was it head-to-head competition between two of the biggest wrestling promotions in the world? Yes. Was it important for both? Was it important for AEW to come out strong? Absolutely. Because had AEW not had the hype and viewership that they had originally and had floundered in that, it would not have been good for their future. And here's the thing. I really do think we get lost in this world of like ratings and blah, blah, blah. The overall ratings in general were pretty even for a while. And then AEW ended up beating the NXT pretty decisively. I mean, and they were always winning in the 18 to 34 demo. Like, there were a few weeks where NXT won that demo, but like out of like what the almost year and a half, 2 year, whatever it was that they were doing that. I mean AEW, like that was AEW's, right? But I think the IWC did hype it up, and I think that's it. Part of it was good because it meant that people were excited. People were excited to watch wrestling, and part of it is exciting, right? I was excited. Everyone was excited because, oh, this is so cool. Head-to-head wrestling. It's going to bring out the best in both of these promotions. Then there's also the toxic people, though, who want to hype it up just so they can build or just so they can break down the other promotion that they might not like. There were WWE fans who were saying,
AEW only caters to smart marks.
And then there were AEW fans who were like,
oh, WWE is just for children. Nobody watches NXT. Look at their demo. I suddenly care about the demo.
No. Here's the thing. Is the demo important? Sure. If you are if you're an advertiser, or if you're the network, the 18 to 34 demo is very important. Or if you're talking about analysis, you want to talk about future projections for AEW, yes. In those three instances, the 18 to 34 demo is important. If you are a fan watching wrestling, why do you care? Genuinely, why do you care? I never got that. I mean, it's what it is, because suddenly everyone became an analyst. Look, and we can talk about it. It's a cool, fun thing to talk about, but it shouldn't but when the conversation about the demo and ratings are the only thing that's carrying the conversation, and that's the main point of emphasis from all the people in the wrestling community, that's dumb. Guys, we should be talking about the product. Talk about the matches. Talk about Takeshita going out there on this excursion in America and putting on some of the best matches of the year. Talk about Roman Reigns being champion for nearly 1,000 days. Talk about SummerSlam. What a great pay-per-view. The first Vince McMahon-less pay-per-view they had, and it was an amazing one. Talk about All Out that's coming up in a few weeks and not in Chicago. Not in Chicago. It is not in Chicago. Talk about that. Talk about the wrestling. Talk about the show. We don't need to focus on the ratings, and I understand. That point. Surf Wrestling said earlier that, do I think Forbidden Door should have been built up way more than it was? Absolutely. The build-up to AEW Forbidden Door was terrible. I don't think anyone can get around that. And I think it was for two reasons. One, they never planted the seeds for it, I think, prior to Double or Nothing, because which goes into the other issue, which I think is the bigger issue. The biggest issue was that they had Double or Nothing like 4 weeks before that pay-per-view. So that build was always going to be rough to begin with, but they just it was just like they just didn't build it up prior to then, because here's the thing. They knew they had this pay-per-view coming up. The seeds should have been planted in some way prior to Double or Nothing for the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, so that people knew that, okay, maybe we're going to see this. And they did like one thing with Jay White and Adam Cole, baby. Like that was the one thing they kind of built beforehand. Everything else was like 2 weeks before the show. Okada they didn't even bring out Okada. Here's the thing, and I don't know whether this might have been a travel issue, or it might have been an issue with getting him for New Japan or whatever. But if you're New Japan Pro Wrestling, I would have made Okada available if possible anytime. I would have been like, Okada, you can have Okada 3 weeks leading up to the pay-per-view. You can have Okada 4 weeks, whatever. Have Okada on AEW TV just to have Okada on AEW TV so we can sell more pay-per-views. That's what they should have done. Because Okada would have drawn people. People would have wanted to see Kazuchika Okada. If even you could have put him out there, have like a 10-second squash match against somebody, and have him just run through someone and be like, this is Kazuchika Okada. He's that damn good. And people would have tuned in for it. And people would have gotten excited for the pay-per-view. So yes, the build to Forbidden Door was bad. The show overall was good to great. Like, for me, it still had the best, for my opinion, the best match of the year. Match of the year, whatever you want to call it. Took place at Forbidden Door. It was Orange Cassidy versus I almost called him Zack Sabre Jr., Will Ospreay. Orange Cassidy versus Will Ospreay. Forbidden Door, match of the year so far. Like, that match, 10 times as good as I thought it was going to be. A million times better than apparently some anti-Orange Cassidy people thought it was going to be. Because a lot of people, it's so weird. Like, the narrative behind Orange Cassidy was always like, people forgot how good he was all of a sudden. Because if he doesn't wrestle for like a month, people are just like, oh man, Orange Cassidy, that gimmick sucks. He's just a lazy dude. He can't even wrestle. And then he goes out there and wrestles, and now it's like a match of the year. And you're just like, oh, okay, maybe he can. But we're going to be quiet now, and I'm going to stop tweeting, right? Because that's what they do. But yeah, so that's where that stands. Guys, keep those questions coming in the chat. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever new videos release. Again, OG Graps this week has been preempted by this show because Trevor is traveling. He's on vacay. If you're watching, Trev, hope you're having a good time. But yeah, so we're going to move on to another topic. And boy, oh boy, is this interesting. So Vince McMahon leaves, and suddenly we get word that maybe Sasha Banks and Naomi are coming back to AEW. Could you imagine? No. But apparently there is a backstage update on Sasha Banks and Naomi. So Vince McMahon retires, and it seems like suddenly they're back in the fold, because this report from Dave Meltzer says that he checked last week, and apparently there are talks between Sasha Banks, Naomi's teams, and WWE, and it almost seems like a lock at this point. It seems like a done deal, I think was the quote in the report. So if it's true, again, if it's true, I mean, it shows you, one, the power of Triple H being in that position rather than Vince McMahon, or I guess just Vince McMahon not being in that position, that automatically you're seeing people like Karrion Kross come back into the fold. You're seeing people like Samuel Shaw, Dexter Lumis, right, come back into the fold. Sasha Banks and Naomi possibly coming back into the fold. And Dakota Sky, Io Shirai coming back into the fold. That, it shows you the power of Triple H being in that position and Vince McMahon not. And as far as what they do when they come back, if I'm WWE, I'm holding on having them show up until after this women's tag team tournament is done. I think you have whoever's going to win it, right? Maybe it's Dakota Kai and Io Sky. If Dakota, oh my God, I'm just going to call her Io Shirai. If Dakota Kai and Io Shirai win it, right, and win the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, you have them hold the belts up, and then you have Sasha Banks and Naomi come out with the actual belts and hold them high and say, we're still here. That would be a cool moment, a la again, I talked about the CM Punk thing earlier. I think it would be a cool moment, I should say, a la CM Punk in 2011. So there's a few things you could do here, but one thing we know for sure, having Sasha Banks and Naomi on your television show is a lot better than not having Sasha Banks and Naomi on your television show. Sasha Banks is one of the best technical wrestlers in the world. She's one of the best characters. She's got charisma. And Naomi has charisma. She's great in the ring. And she sells a lot of merch. So it would make sense for them to come back. And if they do come back, I do not think that you're going to see them buried. I don't think you're going to see Corey Graves. What did he say? They unceremoniously or seraciously or whatever he said about them when they announced that they were not, or they had walked out. I don't think you're going to hear anything like that. I think you're just going to hear good things. MGT in the chat says Johnny Gargano's return is going to be a big moment at a WWE Premium Live event. It could be. Is WWE? Here's my thing, right? Isn't WWE running Cleveland at a certain point, or did I just make that up in my own mind? Because I know AEW is running Cleveland and like right before All Out, but I'm not sure if WWE is running Cleveland anytime soon. I mean, I guess it doesn't look like they are. I just checked, but I would say if they were running Cleveland, it would be a no-brainer to have Johnny Wrestling show up. Either way, Johnny Wrestling, I think, if I had to guess, now that Triple H is in power on the main roster, and you look at the way Tommaso Ciampa is being booked, one of Johnny Gargano's best friends, and in wrestling, one of his mortal enemies, it would make way too much sense for Johnny Gargano. If I'm Johnny Gargano, I'm like, this is the one chance I have to be featured as a star, the biggest star in the biggest pro wrestling company. Because here's the thing, Triple H and HBK, like, say what you want about Johnny Gargano.
He's a little guy. He won't fit in WWE.
Right? Like say what you want. I do that voice way too much. But say what you want. Johnny Gargano will be booked as the biggest and best babyface underdog in the history of pro wrestling if he returns. And that's not that much of a hyperbole, honestly, because Triple H is the guy who made Johnny Gargano into the literal heart and soul of pro wrestling of NXT. With this, Johnny Wrestling could become the heart and soul of pro wrestling. And they could coin that phrase even, but they'd have to pay me first. Anyway, but no, in all seriousness, it makes too much sense for him to come back and do that, and we could see him, like, I genuinely think we could see Johnny Gargano headline a WrestleMania. Like, think about it like that. Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa could headline a night of WrestleMania. That is a real thing that could happen in the coming years. Like, again, Triple H is in charge. The rest of the paying audience would want to see that. MGT says a lot of women's best matches are with Sasha Banks and Naomi is always the highlight in their matches. Yes, it is here's the thing. It's not taking away from people that people tend to have their best matches with Sasha Banks. it just shows you how much Sasha Banks does to elevate her fellow competitors. Like, much like Bryan Danielson did. Like, not everyone that Bryan Danielson wrestles is a terrible wrestler. A lot of the time, the people that Bryan Danielson wrestles are good wrestlers. But even if he's in the ring with a terrible wrestler, Bryan Danielson will make it a show, and he will make it make sense. Sasha Banks does the exact same thing. Now, so, I mean, like, I think you gotta, if you have a chance to bring Sasha Banks back, if I'm Triple H, I'm gonna get her on the phone and be like, hey, Sasha, hey, so, things are changing in the game. I'm playing GM here in WWE. We gotta get you back in, Sasha. In the game. Lemmy. I can't get Lemmy from WrestleMania X7 out of my head when he was playing Triple H's theme song. There's it's all about the game, and now you're playing. It's all about the game, and who's gonna play it? It's all about the game, and I play it. Triple H playing the game, and then he plays it. Triple H, yeah. And he plays it. He is the game, and then he plays it. Like, it's such a bad, like, R.I.P. Lemmy. But, like, my God, that was such a bad like rendition of his own song when he was singing it at X7. That was pretty bad. I digress. Guys, we're heading down the home stretch. I gotta think of something else better to say than that. But guys, this is the beginning of the end here for this show, at least. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. 69 views. Nice. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, which, by the way, we are up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Wrestling with Omer, Anchor, you can find all the links on anchor.fm/wrestling with Omer. YouTube.com/Real Take Wrestling for all your wrestling needs. And follow me on Twitter at OMERQ Show. So, last few minutes here, we'll just kind of riff and talk about some of the other big news of this week. I mean, look, Karrion Kross came back. I mentioned that before. That's another Triple H kind of guy. Like, that was a guy who Triple H on NXT had built up for a year to literally crush everyone. He was the alpha. He was the final boss in NXT. His original run in the main roster did not go well. I think this one's going to go a lot better. I like the whole Sands of Time gimmick. The Sands of Time gimmick, which, by the way, amazing. Like, did you guys know that originally, before they settled on Crown Jewel, the name for, apparently the name for the Saudi shows was gonna be like Sands of Time, which I was like, yeah, Sands of Time. Amazing. MGT says, Omer, I want you to do me a favor and go check out Nikita Lyons of NXT. Buddy. I'm a wrestling fan. I know of Nikita Lyons. I've seen her matches. I have seen the gifs people post online. I am aware of Nikita Lyons. Trust me. And she's getting better. She's getting, every single match I see of her chronologically, she's getting better and better. And let me tell you something. She's going to be a draw. Oh, that's for damn sure. She's going to be a draw. And I believe she's been wrestling for a while. And I think she actually has, like, might not be an MMA background, but, like, it's something. Hold up. She definitely has, like, some sort of background in combat sports, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, she was in WoW. I'm pretty sure she trains or something like that, but she was in WoW back in 2019. So there you go. Yeah, she's great. And you're not gonna get me to say anything bonk. No, bad MGT. I'm not gonna say anything like that. MGT says TikTok's doomsday is here. Oh God, with you mean with like the app or? Oh yeah, TikTok doomsday. Yes. You're referring to the Karrion Kross Sands of Time. It's my favorite thing to say now. Like, ever since I found out that was the original name of the show, like of the Saudi show, I'm just like, every time a Saudi pay-per-view comes up, I'm just like, Sands of Time. It's just, of course they would call it Sands of Time. Although Saudi Mania is definitely a much better name in my opinion. Saudi Mania, baby. Oh, guys, I'll never check one out. Like, I watched one Saudi show. One. Actually, no, not even all the way through. I watched one match on one Saudi show. I have not seen a match on a Saudi show other than the quote-unquote greatest Royal Rumble. That is a lie. I have seen 2 other matches just because I had to see them. The Goldberg sorry, 3 other matches. Okay. I watched a few matches on the Saudi show, if I had to be honest. And it's literally 4 matches, though. It's Brothers of Destruction versus DX. So that's the HBK's return match. I watched Undertaker versus Goldberg. I watched Bray Wyatt versus Goldberg. So as you can tell, I'm a masochist. I love to check out like terrible pro wrestling from those 4. But those are like after those had already happened, and I was just like, oh god, okay, let me see what happened here. But outside of that, the only one I watched attentively was like the Greatest Royal Rumble, and that was like Bryan Danielson. Like that was just Bryan Danielson's like big thing. Like Bryan Danielson's like the longest running, or he had the longest time in one Rumble, I believe. That's like the Royal Rumble record. It's like a 1 hour 16 minutes or whatever. So I was like, yes, Bryan Danielson, baby. And that was also, of course, Titus O'Neil's claim to fame, the Titus slide. We love that. Oh man. MGT says, Omer, what do you think of Becky Lynch's heel turn? Here's the thing. She pulled it off well because she's Becky Lynch and she's great. She's the best. She's best promo, if you ask me. Like, she's the best promo in WWE. I'm not afraid to say that, actually. Yep, best promo in WWE. One of the best in-ring competitors in WWE. Her and Roman Reigns are the top 2 most over acts in WWE consistently. Like, she was going to pull it off. That's so, but does that mean is that what she should have been doing? No, because her big return in front of fans should have been her returning as the man, and then you could have had an evolution into her becoming big time Bex. But I didn't like. Here's the thing: my problem was not with the fact that she was a heel. It was the way that heel turn happened and progressed, and it just seemed like, I don't know. It just seemed weird to me at certain points. Like, what are her motivations and things like that? Which she did a great job of covering up because Becky Lynch is an amazing promo. But I love the fact that she's back. The second, like, after SummerSlam and like, she changed her name on Twitter back to the man, I was retweeting that so quick because I'm just like, Becky Lynch, yes. Becky Lynch is my favorite person in WWE. Like, I think she's the best. That's no hate on anyone else. It's my opinion. That's the I want to see Becky Lynch in a primetime spot every single time. And that match between herself and Ronda Rousey, it might not be a lot of people's cup of tea, apparently, even though Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey are the big draws. It might not be, but it is definitely my cup of tea. And that match, WrestleMania, main eventing WrestleMania, I don't care whether it's night 1, night 2, make it night 3, I don't care. That match is going to go on last. It's going to be epic. It's going to be the match that we were robbed of by Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 35 because it was like one of those things where it's like, what does this match need? Becky's an overface who just won the Royal Rumble. And Ronda, she's as over. She's a champion. She's unbeaten. We're going to put Charlotte in there. Like, so what? Old man, what are you doing? Go away. But that's what happened. And I can't wait till WrestleMania next year. Guys, we're just wrapping up here. Guys, if you haven't already, please hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this today, be sure to hit that follow button, leave a 5-star review, share this with your friends, and go over to youtube.com/Real Take Wrestling and hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Real Take Sports, youtube.com/Real Take Sports for all your NFL, NBA, FIFA World Cup, and other sports needs. Follow me on Twitter at OMERQ Show, MGT, Surf Wrestling, Liam, Cincy, everyone else who's been in the chat. Guys, thank you so much. This has been fun. This always is. We'll have Trevor back next week on Tuesday night for OT Grapped. In the meantime, be happy, be healthy, take care of yourselves, and keep it real.